on this computer. Good afternoon, Ryan.
Hey Steve, how are you?
All right. Well, we're a couple days late with this. Sorry about that.
It's the end of the semester. Things start to snowball a little
Yeah,
bit.
no, and I did see a lot of traffic, people really clamoring for the latest episode of the IDT507 podcast.
That's right.
Oh,
Yeah.
so anyway, so we're moving on to our last module,
Yes.
and or at least I haven't done my share of the grading of the previous module, so we're just going to not talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, from what I saw, I mean, it was a lot of the stuff that we talked about. I think seemed to sink in terms of theory. So, which is good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've reached the end of well, no, we've reached the beginning of our journey.
That's right. That's right. The now of our journey, the presentism of our journey.
So what's this module about?
Yeah, well, and it's interesting, obviously we dealt with a little bit of Web 2.0, so there may seemingly be a little bit of overlap, but it seems to me that we're today, for this module, we're thinking more about the now, the future, what are we doing at this moment in the 21st century. And so, you'll see through these readings that we do a little bit of technological precursors leading to today. So the Bolter and Grusin remediation intro through chapter 2 is a really great looking through. You'll notice the affordances discussion peeking through there, even if it's not entirely evident.
Mm-hmm.
In that they're talking about, do we actually do anything different today, or do we just remediate everything? And take old content and put it into new. They're very much a medium theory. Marshall McLuhan, medium is the message. Like they're working through these concepts of everything today is something that we used to use. So a newspaper becomes a website, and everything becomes digital. So you work through that. That's sort of the precursor to what we're talking about today. So think through their concepts of what hypermediacy is, and then immediacy, and how a lot of their concerns, even though they were writing this in 2000, is really prescient about what we would think about as contemporary 21st century communicative practices, and how so that what might be an interesting project or way to think about some output is updating Bolter and Grusin. Like, what would a 2017 if they had to write this in 2017, what would they change? What would they need to update? So I think that'll hopefully be really helpful to getting people to thinking about shifting media. Like, so what happens when one medium becomes another?
That's just a really good, and I like that's a really cool project idea to take. You could just update it. Not just, but you could update it any number of different ways. You might pick out 5 to 7 key points that they said, they were writing today, they would say this.
Yep.
And just update. Yeah, that would be a great project. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm surprised that both Bolter and others, and Mortella and Jennings, the next reading, it's not a surprise that he wrote, because there was just an amazing amount of scholarship and thinking going on in 97, 98, 99, 2000, 2001, 2002.
Right. Yeah. These, and it's interesting to think about the turn of the century-ness and like how much that feeds into it. Like, is it because were we thinking and writing about these things because they were happening, or because they were naturally destined to happen at the turn of a century? Like, we always tend to be a little bit more retrospective and future casting both at the same time at a turn of a century, these predetermined Y2K fears, that kind of stuff.
That's interesting. This was the first turn of the century I lived through, so I had
me too. I can't compare it to another one.
No, I think that's an interest. At least the Y2K certainly did have that aspect of it. I don't know that the turn to the 20th century brought with it the same kind of attention, but certainly the Y2K did.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, everyone was focused on technology. I mean, obviously the tech boom helped that too, but we were all, as a culture, as a society, thinking about these kind of things.
But I'm not sure, to be honest, that maybe some of the grad students in the IDT program will remember it, but the undergrads,
no,
there's a resident that at all.
No,
they were born. The freshmen this year were born in 97,
oh,
98.
I know.
And so to them, this turn of the century thing, they're totally 21st century
Yep.
kids.
That's a great transition too to thinking about the next topic that we're going to be working through, is this idea of generations and new technology, and like what's the perception of that each generation would have, and that we have of the generations, especially when it comes to like how they communicate. And so on that thread, the Wartella and Jennings will work through some of these concepts of, okay, well, it's also written in 2000, but very prescient again of, this fear of kids these days, fear that has been around forever and ever and ever. And so there's a link in there, a bonus reading on how Socrates hated writing, and it's really just the same critique that we have against Google, that Google is going to just remember everything for us. Calculators are going to ruin math skills. You can just work backwards in time into these concerns. So is the generation today really different than us in terms of the way they communicate, or are they just doing the same thing that everyone always does, and then the society puts the fear on the new communicative practice? So is Twitter any different, or Snapchat really? I date myself by saying Twitter, which they're all on Snapchat and Instagram. So so think through how, because the way you can refract society's fears through young kids often tells you a lot about what we're valuing, and how and what the advancements mean to our society, by just looking at how kids using new tech is viewed. Yeah.
And the idea of digital natives is one that we spend a lot of time on in the undergraduate class, but and I think it's really important for us to understand, and especially depending on where students are in terms of their lives, whether they're digital natives or not. Even in the graduate program with students who are even just a bit older than, or even substantially older than the undergraduate students, they're beginning to be digital natives as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm not even sure I know exactly what a digital native is. But
I think isn't there like another, like digital immigrants, I think is usually.
I think I'm a digital immigrant.
Yeah, but like, are you even functioning any different than a digital native? Because I think that, and those are the questions I think you can ask.
I think so. And understanding in what ways is what the challenge is. Because I think so. I think I would absolutely imagine so, for at least for myself, and I think for most people growing up, it's like your first language.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can only learn your first language once.
Right, exactly.
Native language, and so your native approach to media is fixed.
Mm-hmm.
And can't be changed. You can always move to others, but you don't get it digitally. Well, you've got a youngster.
Yes.
How old is she now?
She's about 1.5 years now. Yeah.
So does she hold devices in her hand?
Yeah, she can already get to apps that on my, if I hand her my phone and I unlock it, she can navigate in ways that I would not expect. Even having heard that digital natives can do this, it surprises me how easy it is for her.
You say navigate.
She's swiping. She knows if it's not on the right screen. Purposeful. Yeah.
She's 1.5 years.
Yeah. It's insane.
I am not a digital native.
Yeah, me either. I'm technically a millennial. Though I loathe to admit that, but that's just by the Pew Research Center says anyone born after 1980, and I'm just at the cusp of that. And so I grew up thinking of myself as I wanted to be Generation X because that's where all the cool kids were. But really, I thought, I'm just Generation Y. But Generation Y has disappeared. We've been subsumed under this concept of the millennial. And then obviously even further to the digital native. So I'm not, digital native, I think is mid-90s, early to mid-90s and later is usually the definitional.
Yeah, so it's your kids, the generation of your kids who were born with parents who had phones.
Yes. Yep.
Right. And that's like, I think that's like a huge major difference. Kids who were born to parents with phones,
Yeah.
that may be a definition of a digital native. I don't know, but
Yeah.
they're very different because it's irresistible to hand the kid the phone.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
Yeah. I mean, it's
they know
all,
it's an object of attention for you. So, it's not, so I've been interacting with a niece who's the same age, and
yeah.
just whenever she sees me, it's the same thing, which is
Yep.
she wants to look at the pictures on my phone.
Oh yeah, she already knows. She already understands the concept of, if I take a picture of her, she immediately, if I hold it up and she knows I'm taking a picture, she will come over and look at it. She wants very badly to see what I just took. And
Yeah.
so to understand that concept has to have something to do with this digital native concept. It has to.
It's just that exposure you can't,
Mhm.
and so you can't, she'll never have the wonder of, like, how does that even happen?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, I sit there and think, oh, it must be weird. Like my brain has said to me, oh, it must be weird for her to understand this, but to her, it's just natural. It's breathing.
Yeah,
That is
exactly.
just exist. Yeah.
And the idea that and if you ever wanted to try an experiment, and it's not so much Wartella, but the oh, and who's the one from MIT who writes this stuff?
Oh,
You read her earlier on, I think.
yeah.
My Second Self, Sherry Turkle.
Oh, yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Mhm.
Turkle.
Ourselves. What's the
Yeah,
alone
Alone Together, which I
together?
read we read in one of my previous summer classes, my book club class. But her idea, if you wanted to enact one of her experiments, is print out one of those pictures and hand it to your kid,
Oh,
because
yeah.
she's going to zoom on it, she's going to swipe on it, of course.
Right, right. Because that
So
makes sense to her.
begin to imagine that difference mindset.
Hmm.
So they approach the print with a digital mindset, as opposed to we approach the digital with the print mindset.
Yep. Yeah. And that's exactly the kind of questions that you guys should be asking this module is what does it mean to be in this society from different perspectives? And then the final one here, the present shock one, is just something that I'm really fascinated. This Douglas Rushkoff, it's a great book. And but not to add on another book, but it's a fascinating read if you folks get time. He essentially builds off of Alan Toffler's Future Shock, which has to do with this concept that technologies are going to be so shocking to people that their actual physiological system is going to have some kind of reaction to it. But he takes it further and says that the asking us to be in the present always and answering emails at all hours and getting social media notifications, that it messes with our temporal, like the human understanding of time gets screwed with in a way that is not normal. He posits that the example he gives is something like air traffic controllers and nurses and medical practitioners were the only people who used to have to be on call. But now everyone is on call at all times. And what does that do to us? And so if you're not, I promise you, if you get through all the rest of it and you're not, all that interesting, you'll find the rush cost. Like, it would be very interesting. I don't think anyone's going to find that boring, or it's incredibly fascinating. You're really engaging. If you're really interested, keep going into the TED Talk version. And then if you're really, really interested, I highly recommend reading the book.
Yeah, no, I listened to the TED Talk. I thought it was very cool, and lots of opportunities to think more about lots of things. So, well, there you have it. We've got a couple weeks left. We'll look forward to your projects.
Yeah.
We'll move along.
Yeah, definitely.
Talk to you later, Ryan.
Yeah. Bye.
See you in a bit.
Yep.